Welcome to the Practical World Podcast, your gateway to work insights and captivating stories from Thailand and beyond. This is the real world. This is the Practical World Podcast.
When you think about a long career, maybe one that stretched over, decades, moving between different companies, there's just this uh, huge amount of wisdom you gather along the way. It's almost like a hidden guide to the professional world, especially, when you're getting closer to those big changes, like maybe thinking about retirement. So today, that's our mission, really. We want to dig into those critical lessons. We're going to pull out the most valuable stuff straight from the source material we've got here.
And that's incredibly valuable for you, the listener, because these aren't just, vague ideas. They're insights that have been distilled down. They offer a kind of shortcut, really, to understanding what actually counts in your working life. We're covering everything from, say, handling different company vibes to, well, actually growing as a person through it all. And like you said, this isn't just for people near the end of their careers. It's really a roadmap for anyone wanting a career that's more robust, more fulfilling, more effective, basically, no matter where you are right now.
Absolutely. So yeah, get ready. We're going deep. Expect maybe some surprising facts and definitely some practical takeaways. We really want you to feel properly informed, ready to think about your own path, career length, finding meaning, all of that. Okay, let's unpack this. So when you look across these decades of experience, different companies, certain core lessons just pop up again and again. It's like a theme tune for a career almost. And right at the top, it seems, is adaptability. It's just crucial. But what does that really mean day to day? Not just being flexible.
That's a really good point because adaptability, according to our sources, isn't just about, getting used to a new desk location. It's realizing that what good work even looks like can be totally different from one place to another.
Right.
Yeah, like being proactive in company A, great. Same behavior in company B might be seen as stepping on toes. You're essentially learning new rules for a new game, often without, a clear rule book. So being able to pivot, that's your edge.
Okay, so adaptability is the edge, but then the foundation. That seems to be connections. The sources really hammer home relationships matter more than you think. Building real, honest connections with people, colleagues, bosses, it pays off, sometimes in ways you just can't foresee.
Right. And growing out of those relationships and how you handle them is something the sources call your biggest asset, your reputation. Your reputation is your currency.
Yeah.
And it's not just about getting the next promotion.
Mm.
Our sources actually show how a solid reputation can literally be the thing that saves your job in a downturn or opens doors to opportunities you didn't even know existed. Integrity, reliability, they're not just nice words. They're the actual bedrock. That's how you build the trust, the currency over the long haul.
And then there's this very real kind of practical point. Not every job fits your passion. Despite all the talk about following your passion, sometimes you take up to the experience or for stability, maybe just to learn something new, not because you adore every single task. So if it's not always about pure passion, what keeps you going? What drives that sustained success? The sources seem to point towards a constant effort towards something else.
Exactly. It means you've got to have this mindset of sort of always improving. Continuous learning never stops. It sounds cliche maybe, but your skills, your knowledge, they need updating.
Yeah.
Constantly. And just as vital, though often, let's be honest, pretty uncomfortable, is that feedback is a gift. Even when it stings a bit, taking that feedback on board, that's genuinely how you get better, how you fine tune things, those tricky moments. They become real growth points.
And practically speaking, the material points out two things that are, easy to overlook, but totally essential. One, work-life balance is essential. Not just a buzzword. It's about avoiding burnout. It's survival, really. And two, financial planning is critical. Thinking about retirement, planning for it early. It really does matter. It's about building a future that works, not just a present that looks good.
And kind of pushing back against some older ideas about careers, the insights suggest that job hopping can be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the sources indicate that moving roles, maybe even companies, can actually speed up your growth and your salary too. It sort of flies in the face of that traditional wisdom, stay put for loyalty. Especially now, the market's so dynamic. It's about being strategic in your moves, though, not just flitting about.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how those old ideas are getting flipped. And okay, wrapping up this first section, the big takeaway seems to be career paths are rarely linear. Just forget the straight line, expect sideways moves, maybe some detours, even needing to restart sometimes. It's all just part of it. And linked to that, networking inside and outside the company pays off. It builds support, opens doors you wouldn't find otherwise. It's more like building a web than climbing a ladder, really.
And what's really striking here as we dig a bit deeper is how often that idea of cultural adaptability comes up again,
Mhm.
especially when you're talking about moving between companies. It's not just some general skill, it's like fundamental to actually succeeding.
Yeah.
If you can figure out those unspoken rules, you're way ahead of the game.
You nailed it. The source material really stresses that watching and understanding the patterns in a company's culture is key. Like, how do teams actually interact? What are the communication styles? How are decisions really made? Even the informal stuff, who talks to who, how meetings feel versus the agenda. Paying attention helps you decode those hidden rules. And that helps you fit in better, feel more satisfied. It really is like learning a whole new language for each place.
And talking about language, the sources make a big point that communication is a two-way street. Listening, truly listening, is just as vital as talking, especially when you're in a diverse team. For instance, the sources describe situations where someone new really listened for the underlying worries in a team instead of just jumping in to talk. That built trust much faster, bridged some cultural gaps. It's just critical for adapting across cultures, making sure people feel, actually heard.
That makes total sense. And when you're trying to figure out these new cultural maps, mentorship is powerful. Finding someone experienced, someone who kind of gets the culture already, getting guidance from them can massively speed up your learning curve. The sources tell stories about people who basically credit a cultural guide for helping them settle in quickly, explaining the why behind things.
But what's really crucial here is avoiding stereotypes and appreciating individual differences. Culture shapes us, sure, but it doesn't fully define any single person. Taking the time to get to know colleagues as individuals, that helps you move past assumptions, build real connections, and collaborate way more effectively. It's easy to paint with a broad brush, but the sources show the real magic happens when you see the person inside the context.
And that sensitivity, it applies directly to everyday things like feedback. The source highlights that approaching feedback with cultural sensitivity improves team dynamics because different cultures just handle feedback differently, don't they? Think about a culture where direct critique is normal, even respectful, versus one where it feels, I don't know, aggressive. Knowing how to tailor your approach makes a huge difference. Better results, stronger teams.
And all of this really leads to this key idea: cultural intelligence, or CQ. This isn't just about being nice or tolerant. It's the actual skill of navigating cultural differences strategically, maybe even leveraging them. Think about there's an example in the source as a project manager. They understood that with Team A, direct feedback was fine. But with Team B, it needed to go through a senior person indirectly. That's CQ right there, knowing how to adapt your approach to get the best outcome. It's a massive asset in today's globalized workplaces.
So, okay, we've talked a lot about what you do, adapting, communicating, building connections. But something that really jumped out at me from the sources, it's how much these external challenges, these different environments actually change you, who you become. Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. It's not just the career path, it's the personal transformation happening underneath.
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest growth areas the sources point to is definitely enhanced adaptability and resilience.
Yeah.
Just by going through the process of figuring out different workplaces, different expectations, you naturally get better at handling change. Dealing with uncertainty, you become, well, tougher, less easily thrown off course.
And alongside that, you can't help but develop better communication and people skills, right? Because
Yeah.
you have to engage with all sorts of different people. You learn to adjust your style, understand different team vibes. It makes you a much more flexible, uh, effective communicator overall, able to connect with almost anyone.
And that exposure, it also gives you a much broader perspective, increases your cultural intelligence. Like you said, you start to genuinely appreciate different ways of thinking, different ways of working, which then feeds back into how you solve problems, how you collaborate, makes you more innovative, more inclusive. It's like getting, extra tools in your mental toolkit.
It's not just outward facing either, is it? Dealing with different bosses, different ways feedback is given, that actually forces you towards greater self awareness and emotional intelligence. You learn to manage your own reactions better, understand how you come across in different settings. It's like this ongoing real world masterclass in managing yourself and your relationships.
And you definitely gain more confidence in handling ambiguity, complexity, because these diverse settings, they throw new, often messy challenges at you all the time. You have to think on your feet, be creative, be strategic. The sources suggest this builds a sort of inner calm, actually, an ability to face the unknown without freaking out, maybe even with a bit of curiosity.
And finally, by seeing all these different company cultures up close, comparing them, figuring out what clicks with your values, you end up developing a stronger sense of professional identity and values. It really clarifies what's truly important to you, helps guide your future choices. It's like finding your own professional compass, your North Star.
So, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, the big picture seems really clear. A career, especially one that involves moving between companies, it's not just a list of jobs on a resume, it's this dynamic, ongoing journey. Constant learning, adapting strategically, and some pretty deep personal growth along the way. It's a story that keeps evolving with every new chapter.
Exactly. And these lessons, they really aren't just for people nearing retirement, are they? They're more like a blueprint, a guide for anyone really who wants to be more effective at work, more resilient when things get tough, and ultimately more fulfilled in their whole professional life, whatever stage they're at. It's pretty timeless stuff for navigating work today. So, what does all this mean for you listening right now as you think about your own career path? The source material mentions that legacy matters. You know, how you make your mark professionally, personally, that's what defines the meaning of your career in the end. So, the question to ponder is, what legacy do you hope to build? And how might these insights we've talked about help guide you in shaping that future?
Thank you for joining. This is the Practical World Podcast.